Why do all the Duggar kids' names start with the letter J, and why is there no Jim Bob Jr.? Of all the things that the Duggars have ever said, most of them which I do not agree with at all, I can actually get behind the whole naming all their kids with the letter J thing. Michelle Duggar gets pregnant with their first child, and they end up naming that kid Joshua. They specifically said that they chose the name Josh because, well, they liked the name Joshua, but on top of it, it was a biblical figure that they, very much so admired. Cool. Michelle Duggar then gets pregnant again, and she miscarries that pregnancy, unfortunately, and her doctor blamed it on the fact that she was on the pill at the time. Yes, Michelle Duggar has been on birth control before. That's a whole other story. But it was an early enough pregnancy to where they did not know if they were expecting a boy or a girl. Michelle and Jim Bob decided, or like they felt that it was a boy, and they named that miscarriage Caleb, specifically Caleb Ryan. I think it's a fabulous name. And if picking a name for, a miscarriage is going to give them any sense of healing, I'm down for that. But also, some women from the absolute get-go, the moment that they find out they're pregnant, they just know what they're having. So if Michelle Duggar just knew that she was having a boy, honestly, sure, cool. I trust it. Doesn't even matter anyway. We have Josh and then Caleb, rest in peace. Michelle Duggar gets off the pill and she feels like God blesses her with, not just one baby right after she gets off the pill, but twins as a sign to say, hey, this is the right idea. You shouldn't be on birth control, blah, blah, blah. And they name those babies Jana and John David because they like those names. And they've said at this point that this is when they decide that they're going to have as many kids as God will give them. They're not going to, do anything to prevent pregnancy, blah, 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 on and on. We know how the Duggars work at this point. But let's be real. When you do that, you don't expect to have 19 kids. They wholeheartedly did not think they were going to end up having as many kids as they had. I don't think anyone would have ever thought that they would have ended up having as many kids as they had. That is an impressive thing for the body to go through over and over and over and, to be able to carry all those pregnancies. I've said this a million times. I'll say it a million more times. Michelle's body is a miracle. And yes, the doctors have had, a lot to do with that. She's had a lot of, pre and postnatal care. But at the end of the day, medicine can only do so much. I'm amazed at what her body's been able to do. So at this point, they realize that, they never know when their last child is going to be. And they already have, these 3 kids with J names. And what if we name, this next kid, I don't know, Elizabeth, Henry, Zoe, Philip, and that ends up being the last kid. So you have all these kids that are like J, and they're going to have that one outlier. They weren't about to do that, so they decided they're going to keep all their kids' names starting with the letter J. And I can get behind that sentiment. Don't know if I would do it myself, but I can get behind it. But why is there no Jim Bob Jr.? Well, at first glance, there are Jim Bob's children who have either his first name or his middle name as their middle name, as well as there being a kid literally named James. People forget that the name Jim Bob Duggar is short for James Robert. Jim Bob Duggar's legal name is James Robert Duggar. Josh's middle name is James. Twins Jedediah and Jeremiah, both of their middle names are Robert, and they also have a son named James. But then there's something else I think we also have to consider. There were a lot of men named James in the Duggar family history. Jim Bob Duggar's paternal grandfather, his name was James Duggar. His son, so Jim Bob's father, was James Lee Duggar, Jimmy Lee. He would also go by JL. And as we have learned a lot over the years, through whispers through the grapevine, then also with what Amy Duggar King put out in her book, Jimmy Lee was a fucking menace. He was a horrible human being. He was a very traumatizing guy. And of course, what did he do? Because he was named after his dad, he continues things on, probably a bit of an ego. He named his son also James. Only he wasn't, Jimmy Lee, he wasn't James Lee. He was James Robert, Jim Bob. It would not surprise me if, with all this happening, Jim Bob Duggar may not have wanted to name a child James, especially a first name, because he didn't want the name to go on and continue. He almost maybe potentially wanted to break that cycle, or the name remind him of the shit that his dad put him through. It could also be that he decided that, there were already enough James in the family. He was like, I've had enough. But after a while, you do start running out of J names, or at least J names that you like. J names that fit along with your last name. James is biblical. We did not get James Andrew until 2001. He was the 13th Duggar child. And yes, I looked it up. I did look it up over here. He was born in 2001. So while there was no Jim Bob Jr., there is a Joshua James, a Jedediah Robert, a Jeremiah Robert, and a James Andrew.